You know, we're all born with a family, but then we also make a family with who we do the journey with along the way. And this room tonight is filled with the OGs who started this company, Kevin, Aaron, Tammy, myself, Angie, and all the original employees, plus the OG investors. Dan Angeloff is here tonight, Matt McGovern, David Wang, Richard Smithline. Thank you all for being there from the beginning of this journey. Now 17 years later, we had a good year. We had a good year. And with no further ado, I'm going to introduce you now to our special guest speaker, astronaut Ron Garan. Come on up here, Ron.
I want to talk about one specific image. I want to talk about NASA image designation AS8 142383. Now, I want to talk about that because that image changed my life, and it changed your life. In fact, it changed the entire course of human history. It, I believe, was an inflection point between two human epochs. I think it was the spark of an evolutionary phase shift where humanity was given the opportunity to transcend our humble beginnings and ascend to incomprehensible heights, both literally and figuratively. Now, images can change our perspective. They can change the way we see ourselves. And there's probably no image that changed the way we see ourselves more than NASA image designation AS8 142383. Now, the story begins on a December morning of December 21st, 1968, at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Atop the tallest, the heaviest, the most powerful rocket ever brought to operational status, the Saturn V, sat the crew of Apollo 8. There was Commander Frank Borman, Command Module Pilot Jim Lovell, and Lunar Module Pilot Bill Anders. The aim of the mission was to become the first crewed spacecraft in history to travel to and orbit around the moon, and of course, to return to Earth safely. The inflection point came 3 days later when the crew of Apollo 8 came up from behind the far side of the moon on their fourth orbit, and they witnessed something never seen before by human eyes. Commander Borman was the first to see the amazing sight, and he called in excitement to the others, taking a black and white photo in the process. In the ensuing scramble, Bill Anders took a more famous color photograph, and it was all captured on the flight voice recorder. This famous image, known as Earthrise, is probably the most influential photograph ever taken. This image revolutionized how we see the world, how we see ourselves, with its simple message that we are one people traveling on one planet towards one shared future. But I think for the most part, the meaning and the significance of this image has, for the most part, been forgotten. But back in 1968, for a brief moment, the world was one. People from all over the world, even in the Soviet Union, a nation that at the time was locked in a space race with the US and a Cold War with the West, declared this a monumental achievement of all of humanity. For a brief moment, back in 1968, the world rallied around the image of Earthrise. In this breathtaking beauty is a deep heralding to the unity that we as a species are called to. But if we zoom into the microscopic details of this photograph, realizing that it was taken in 1968, we realize that not everything is as it seems. Apollo 8 came at the end of 1968, which was a year that was filled with much strife in the US and around the world. There was unrest in the streets in Europe and America, and there were a number of significant political assassinations around the world. July 20th, 1969 was my most vivid childhood memory, and was also the first moment where I realized that I wanted to be an astronaut. It was on that day where I, as a small boy, along with millions and millions of people all around the world, watched those first footsteps on the moon. Now, I don't think I would have been able to put it in these words at the time, but on some level, I realized, even at that age, that we had just become a different species. We were a species no longer confined to our planet. And I wanted to be a part of that group of explorers that got to step off our planet and look back upon ourselves. And that dream came true about 4 decades later when I launched into space on board Space Shuttle Discovery on the STS-124 mission. And I remember the day of launch, getting into our spacesuits, leaving the crew quarters and getting out to the Astrovan, waving to everybody as we went out. We drove out to the launch pad, rode the elevator to the pointy end of the rocket, and then one by one, we climbed through the hatch and into our respective places on Discovery's flight deck there, and also on the mid deck. And there we were. We're all laying our backs, strapped to 4.5 million pounds of explosives, and it's one of these wonderful moments that life gives you for self-reflection. And I briefly wondered what I was getting myself into. I was born in the year that Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space. 50 years later, almost to the day, from the very same launch pad that Yuri Gagarin launched from, I launched into space with a couple of Russian military officers on a spacecraft called Gagarin. And as we stood at the base of the rocket that would take us to space on a cold April evening from a previously top-secret Soviet military installation, I looked up at the top of the rocket and I saw an American flag and a Russian flag side by side. And that image was burned into me. And I get choked up just thinking about it right now, because I spent the first 15 years of my adult life training to fight the Russians. I was a Cold War fighter pilot stationed on the tip of the sword in the former West Germany before the fall of the Berlin Wall, and I fought in combat in another part of the world where I saw firsthand the horrors of war. Back then, I was operating in a two-dimensional us versus them world. Now, this is the image of our world that our civilization is currently based on. It's a two-dimensional landscape of nation-states fighting and competing over resources and ideologies. It's a landscape where not only nations compete, but NGOs, corporations, special interest groups, political parties, and this is the real world. This is the image taken by the Apollo 8 astronauts over 50 years ago. This image proclaims the fact that each and every one of us is riding through the universe together on the spaceship that we call Earth. From this vantage point, you can't see national boundaries. All you can see is the fragile oasis of our home planet Earth. So let's look back again at this two-dimensional image. What we need to understand is that this is something that we created, but we didn't create it based on the reality of our world. This is the guidepost of the old human epoch. And it may have been appropriate. It may have been appropriate before we realized how interconnected and interdependent we all are. It may have been appropriate before we realized that humans could destroy the very life support systems of our planet. And it may have been appropriate when nation states could operate in relative isolation. Now, I'm not saying we should do away with nation states. What I am saying is that this is no longer the appropriate guidepost for our actions. This is the appropriate guidepost for our action. This is reality. In order for humanity to progress and prosper, we need to tackle and deal with the very real challenges and problems facing us in the context of the real world. We need to enter into a new human epoch and build a future that's based on the image of Earthrise. A foundational part of the building and construction of this future is business enterprise. Businesses, the decisions that we're making in our businesses right now, have the incredible power to either destroy our planet by clinging to the two-dimensional mindset of the old human epoch, an epoch that is obsessed with conquest and competition and profit maximization and growth at all costs. Or business enterprise can save it by embracing Earthrise and ushering in a new human epoch that's based on three key tenets: interdependence, long-term thinking, and profound collaboration, all wrapped in the blanket of empathy and compassion. We cannot continue as a species with a two-dimensional map as our model. The principles of Earthrise will lead to a positive, restorative future, a future where a stabilized human population can live within the planetary limits of Earth in harmony with the planet and with harmony with each other, a future that we would all want to be a part of. I want to thank all of you for what you're doing and what you will do to help make life on our planet as beautiful as our planet looks from space. You don't have to be in orbit to have the orbital perspective, and by working together, we don't have to accept the status quo on our planet. So let's nudge the trajectory of our society towards a more sustainable, more just, more beautiful future. So thank you.
First of all, before we get on to the Fight On Award, I want to call out just two special people that are unsung heroes that have helped make ERI what it is today. Paul Williams, who's been with us since the moment we started our company, has handled all of our media, gotten us all the publicity, and he's here with his beautiful wife, Terry Williams, tonight. People haven't got to meet Paul. He's been always behind the scenes, but I wanted him to meet everybody and everybody to meet Paul. Paul's the reason why our brand is the leading brand in the United States today. Thank you, Paul Williams. Thank you for everything. Eric Houston, where's Eric? There's Eric Houston. Eric Houston has been with us since the beginning, designed our website, does all the board books and all the graphics for our company, besides a lot of other things he works on behind the scenes technologically. Now, Eric is one of these unique human beings, not only just a great, young, talented superstar, but he has a way about him. About 10 years ago or so, he called me. He grew up in Fresno, and he said, "Hey, John, can I stay with the company if I move?" I said, "Sure, where are you moving?" Because Samantha, his wife, wanted to find an area that was closer to her family and less congested than Fresno, which I didn't think there was many areas less congested than Fresno. I said, "Where are you moving to?" He goes, "I'm moving to Bozeman, Montana." Of course, never heard of Bozeman, never been to Montana. And I said, "Sure, Eric, go." And I'm like, looked up Bozeman, sleepy little town. Montana, sounds like a beautiful place. Well, Eric has sold his home and moved up to a bigger home 3 different times. And I think on paper now he's worth more than I'm worth now. I mean, like, you know, the Yellowstone hits television and Eric's sitting like on a fortune of like real estate in Bozeman, Montana. But anyway, Eric, thank you for all you've done. Thank you for all the board creation, our website, and all the great work over the last 17 years. Now on to the Fight On Award, and then I'm going to keep it short and sweet because that's how our recipient would like it, I know. He's a very humble man. And when we named the Fight On Award, the Dan Angeloff Fight On Award, it was based on the great qualities that Dan has exhibited his entire life, and we've got to enjoy Dan for 17 or so years. Radical integrity, an amazing teacher, a lifelong student, and someone you just really want to be. And we've been so lucky and blessed not only to have Dan and then Matt, his son-in-law, who's here with us tonight, and Keith, and onward. That set the tone for building a board with all the qualities that Dan has lived the last 80 plus years of his life and taught us how to be better leaders and better people. Dan was the first person to join the board of directors. And from there, we built the board. But now that we're honoring board members who represent those great qualities, it's really an honor tonight to honor the new recipient. David Wang was one of the original people who helped start ERI back in 2005. We look at Dave like we look at Matt, like we look at Richard Smithline, like we look at Dan Angeloff. Started with us in 2005, helped us raise the first $12 million of capital. He's not only smart, he's not only resilient, but he's also a dedicated husband, a doting father. He's the chairman of our audit committee. Let's not forget that. But David is not only a great person, but he's also an accessible friend. Someone that I've spoken to at midnight or at 5 in the morning when things get tough. Everyone can be a friend when things are easy. But nobody in this room would ever say that these 17 years have been one straight line journey of success. We know we faced lots of mountains and hurdles and near-death experiences. And David has been there, not only from the beginning, but all along the way. And he, like Dan and Matt and Keith, is not only a man of radical integrity and great character, but he's also a gentle teacher, a lifelong student, and someone who has taught everyone in the leadership and in leadership positions at ERI how to be a better leader, and more important, how to be a better person. ERI would not be here whatsoever in the way, shape, or form that it is today without his involvement. And I'm just grateful to have him on our board of directors as the chairman of our audit committee and as a great and lifelong friend. Our 2021 Fight On Award winner, Mr. David Wang. Thank you, David. Am I supposed to say something? This is heavy. I'll hold it.
Fight on. Such an honor to be here with all of you today. Thank you for this amazing award. Real treat to see Dan and Joe Jean. Real treat. I've been involved with the company since 2006.
Day one.
Ish. Amazing to see how much the company's grown. Amazing to think about all the things we're going to accomplish together. I'm just at a loss for words. It's just so wonderful to see everyone together today. It is, it's been a tough couple of years for all of us. And I just can't thank the Shigarians enough for all their support over all these years. So thank you very much.
We love you, David. Thank you so much. This is for you.